Hey, it's Drybear. Throne of Liberty is a brand new MMO, which means a bunch of new systems, complicated interactions, and progression systems that you need to be aware of. So today I'm gonna do my best to prepare you to get started in Throne of Liberty by demystifying as many of the game mechanics so that you can understand exactly how everything works and be informed for your progression to end game. Now, to answer a burning question that I've seen a lot, yes, this is a pay-to-win light game. It's actually a lot more forgiving than most pay-to-win games, and it doesn't mean that you're gonna be completely out if you want to play free to play, as you can earn almost anything that's paid in the game by just playing it itself. And I have guides going over the monetization scheme for the game, as well as the best items to buy or not buy in the game as well, if you find that on my channel and you're interested in that sort of topic. Here's a rough outline of what we're going to cover in this video, and I'll leave timestamps down below to help you navigate if you want to skip over certain sections. Let's start with the first question that people are going to ask right away, which is about the weapon system and the class system. Throne of Liberty does not have a traditional class system. You're not going to be selecting a thematic RPG style class when you make your character. You'll just be making a character. And then from the weapons that you equip and the abilities you put on your bar, you will create your own play style from that. Now, that system is not for everyone, certainly, but this one has a couple new takes on it than we've seen before in previous games like ESO or New World or even Guild Wars. So let's dive into what makes this game unique. First of all, you have 7 weapons to choose from: dagger, sword, greatsword, a longbow, crossbow, staff, or wand. And again, you can have 2 of those equipped at any one time. Whichever weapon you currently have in your main hand will be the one that you auto attack with, and on PC you can press tilde to swap between those, and each of them have their own basic attack that you'll want to be aware of, and they'll have some interactions and buffs and synergies between them. However, at any time you can use any of the abilities available to either one of the weapons, and if it's not your currently held weapon, it'll just swap to that one and use it and go back to auto attacking. So you see I have the staff in hand right here. If I were to use a wand ability like this, it'll just bring out the wand, use the ability, and go back to auto attacking. If I want to attack with the wand, I'll be able to just swap with tilde and it'll start attacking with that instead. What you'll notice is there are 10 slots. So down here at the very bottom of the screen is your ability list. This is your skill bar to put skills on. You'll notice that there are 10 total slots or 12 total slots that you can put on here, and there's going to be 11 total skills per weapon. So if you wanted to, you could have of the available ones, 11 of one weapon and 1 of another. So if you wanted to really specialize in a specific weapon, you can. If you wanted to have some mixture, you can, and everything in between. So aside from your skills, and you can bind them however you want and put them however you want from each of the 2 weapons you have equipped, you also have passive skills, and you can do the same thing here. You can have 8 total passives equipped from both of your weapons, and they all do different things, adding stats, giving you bonuses. There's even some cool synergies, like if you have wand and staff, you can make projectiles from magic synergized together. Crossbow and longbow have this. A lot of the melee weapons have this. You can even do poisons with daggers and wands, that sort of thing. Then you have a dedicated skill slot here for defense skill. You have active skills, which are all your regular abilities. You have passive skills, which are all your passive effects. And then you have a defense skill slot in Q. And you choose either of the defense skills from one of your 2 weapons to be your defense skill. Now, why is this defensive skill important? It is a unique mechanic in this game where you can parry or perfect block abilities that come out from any number of enemies. And it's a huge part of your kit, an ability to actually interact with the game and use properly. So when you're attacking a normal mob, let's just attack this to gain aggro, periodically the mob will do what's called a Fury attack. And it's a concentric purple rings will appear and start to close down. You can pop your defensive ability at any time. It will give you a defensive bonus while it's active. And then if the enemy uses a Fury attack and you pop the defensive attack, right as that hits you, you get a perfect, which gives you bonus effects based on which defensive attack you have. And these Fury attacks are actually quite dangerous, especially in dungeons and boss encounters. If you get hit by this, you could get knocked back, you could get stunned, you get hit with a giant fire debuff or poison debuff that really, really hurts. So when this comes in, you pop your defensive attack, you get your perfect, and based on whatever skill you choose, you get some kind of benefit. A huge bonus in power, a huge heal, a single target ability, some kind of buff, some kind of benefit that you'll read on the defensive ability that might be particular to the gameplay you're looking to accomplish. Next, let's talk about how you make your skills and weapons better, because it's going to be portion of your progression and making your character stronger, and something you want to think about when you're leveling as well, because it'll help you decide on what kind of build you're going to go for. So if you press K on PC, you'll bring up your skill list here, and any one of these skills individually can be improved by using training books. So you see this up arrow on the skill here. I can click this and I can spend training books to make this specific skill better. And as I go higher and higher higher in levels, the base value and the percentage value will go up on this skill, making it stronger, and also will require higher and higher quality of these books. And you can do the same thing for passives as well, using quality improvement books. Same kind of item, just a different name for passive skills specifically, and you can use these to level this up and make it stronger, which will make it grow and grow and grow until you eventually have a higher value. So you do want to be investing in specific pairing of weapons as you go along. It doesn't mean you can't switch to a different class setup or swap skills in and out and re-level those as well. And you also will have the ability to transfer skill level progress to a new skill using consumables in the game that you can earn as well. So if you want to respec, say you wanted to, say you were like, dagger and crossbow and you wanted to go dagger and shield, then you could do that and you can transfer some of the crossbow skills over to shield skills if you wanted to. So that's kind of the skill progression and how you make your character stronger. The second way you make your character stronger through weapons and abilities is going to be your weapon mastery, which is this list right here. You only can add mastery, at least in the open beta, through the mastery items that you get through group activities for the most part, plus events, and sometimes you can get them in bundles and bonuses as well. You'll consume these items and then your 2 equipped weapons will gain mastery experience, and as you gain mastery experience, it'll start going up and you can start spending into one of these 3 trees to get stats like cooldown reduction, bonus damage, and each weapon will be a little bit different based on what kind of weapon it is. Like there's like a burning and dot curses are a big part of staff, so there's a burning build here for attribute if you wanted to do that, burning chance, burning damage, that sort of thing, plus bonus damage and HP and resistance. So making your character ability stronger is a combination of getting skill books, the improvement books and the training books, making your passives and your main abilities better, making your defensive skills better, and then gaining mastery with those weapons and leveling them up that way. Next, let's talk about traversal in this game, because there's a couple mechanics that are so ingrained in the overall experience of Throne Liberty that you need to be aware of them. The first one is going to be your morph system. So if you go to your menu here and click on morph, there are going to be your main morphs, and you can think of this as almost like World of Warcraft travel form for Druid, but essentially these are your mounts. You have a ground mount that you can transform into, you have a gliding mount that you can transform into, and a swimming mount that you can transform into. These are your morphs. Each one of these can be activated at pretty much any time as long as the conditions are met. Your ground mount you can always transform into. It'll give you a movement speed boost, and you can just press shift and forward or sprint on console forward in order to transform into it, and you can do this during combat to dodge mechanics. If you're high up on a ledge and you start falling enough distance, you can actually press spacebar on PC again while falling to enter into your glide mount. And you can do this in combat, you can do this during encounters, and some encounters require you to use your glide mount as well. But this will just, think of this as a glider. You will constantly lose altitude. If you want to, you can dive straight down to the ground and control your descent, but this allows you to avoid fall damage or travel from one area to another, and some quests will even need you to go up high and glide down to a location in order to finish the quest. And the last morph is your swim morph. This is basically your ground mount, but if you're in any amount of water that causes you to submerge, as soon as you enter water, you'll automatically transform into your swimming mount. And again, there are some encounters, some dungeons and raids that will be submerged in water. Water will fill the area and you'll be forced to use your water mount. You can't use skills when you're in this form, but you'll be able to travel between certain areas or get around certain obstacles by going into your swimming mount. There's also a cosmetic only morph list that you can go to special here. This is just like a list of goofy little things that you've collected that you can transform into. They're just cosmetic and fun, and you can just click instant morph, and when you're around in town hanging out with your friends, you can transform into most of the models in the game as long as you collect them and activate them. Next up is your Amitoi, which is your pet here, your Amitoi, your Amitoi. This is going to be a big part of your gameplay. It's not the end-all be-all, but you want to be aware of this because you'll be collecting these and activating them. These, at base, will collect items for you if they drop on the ground, so you'll see them run over and grab an item and bring it back to you. Everyone gets a base one of these as part of the leveling process, so you always have one active, and there's also going to be a heal ability, the Amitoi Cheer, which most of them have, that will constantly heal you by consuming World Tree leaves, and it's a way to keep yourself healthy in combat or when you're soloing or out progressing. There are tons of these to collect through quests and bonuses and real money transactions to buy off the auction house, and there are little bonuses that you can get by collecting all of them. They're very small, but not so small that you want to ignore them. So by collecting more of these, you can get EXP bonuses, gold bonuses, contract bonuses, and you can even pair them together to get all kinds of really cool things that switch them all around, which is pretty nice. You can actually swap these out. They'll wave to you. They have special animations. They have small, minor gameplay gameplay impacts. You always want to have one available, and if you can collect them, you want to. Next, let's quickly cover Guardians, which will unlock about halfway on your way to progression to 50. You will be able to unlock the ability to summon Guardians. Each one of these Guardians has a buff or passive or bonus, and you'll have a long cooldown to transform into one of these Guardians and use their benefits to your own growth. So you have this Guardian ability based on your assigned Guardian. You'll be able to transform and then use special abilities and do certain things and take on the visage of that Guardian for a short period of time, and that will affect how you do open world activities and some dungeon encounters if the Guardian is available. And lastly, let's mention the grapple points, because not only will you be using these to traverse, so if we kind of drop down here, you can see these grapple points, they will always be glowing like this, and it's very important to mention this because not only will you be able to get up on areas using the grapple or get into the air, which will allow you to glide in some situations. Again, just like the morphs, there will be situations in PvE encounters or PvP encounters where you'll be forced to use your grapple. Some boss mechanics require you to grapple onto a lever and pull it at the right time during a phase transition, and so you need to know about this grapple and use it so that you can get around and travel the world, but also complete some encounters. Next, let's talk about questing and your progress through the world, because this will be super important for you to be able to get to the end level and enjoy your process as well. The first thing is you will use these waypoints that you can unlock. They look like this if you haven't discovered it yet, so just go to the waypoint and then activate it by clicking on it, and then you can travel between these for free under level 30. Once you cross level 30, it will take you the soft currency, the Salant gold coins in the game to travel around the world. So everywhere you go, you want to go ahead and pick these up to reveal the map around you. Inside of your quest list, so your content list, is going to be several different types of quests, and you want to be able to activate as much of these as possible and complete as many of these as possible, as they all have their own individual benefits. The most important is going to be your main quest, your main story quest, your MSQ, whatever you want to call it, and that's going to be this purple little star symbol available. This is going to be progressing you through the story. It will unlock a lot of your game mechanics and menu options, so you want to be doing these at the highest level. There's two forms. It is the main story version, and then there's like additional quests that you want to complete as you go along, which is pretty important. The next is going to be a regional based quest system, and it is this blue star compass looking icon. This is going to be a sub list of quests that appear in each region. So based on the region, if you zoom out here, you can see that each one of these is a region. They will have their own list of region specific quests, and I do recommend, once we have the normal leveling progress on the open beta, we had accelerated XP. It's not going to be like that on launch, so you do probably want to go through each one of these regions and finish all of the region quests, as you'll get benefits for doing so, and final rewards, which will help you in your progression process. Next is your contract list, and this is going to refresh every day, and you want to make sure you're grabbing contracts and doing them, because they give you a very important contract currency, a contract coin, that you will use to keep your character progressed and move through the game. In every major hub, you will have a contract manager and a contract coin merchant. In some main towns, the contract manager won't be there. You'll just be able to convert the coins. This is where you go and spend the contract coins that you earned from being able to finish those contracts. Again, you can get nice weapons from this. You can get very important crafting materials, which we'll cover in a second, to be able to make your character stronger and progress through the game. And all you have to do is go to these contract managers and accept the contracts and do them. It's kind of like the mission boards in New World, if you've played that game, where you just go, you accept these missions and you go do them, but you want to be doing them regularly because they will have a reset refresh time, so you want to be doing them very often. These are kind of like your daily missions. Then lastly, you'll have guild contracts. These are long form quests that you'll do with your guild, and this game is very guild focused, so I recommend joining a guild and then keeping up with these as long as you can. If you see it nearby and donations become available, keep up with the guild and do that sort of thing. Now let's talk about your gear progression and your crafting and recipe system. This is super important, and I highly recommend having at least a cursory understanding of these systems before you start leveling, because it's going to make your leveling process be a lot more directed and focused, and you'll also get a lot more out of it as well. In every major hub, you will have crafters available. You will have the sundries crafter, accessories, armor, weapons, and there's also a skill crafter as well. The skill crafter we can start with first. This will be where you craft those books we talked about earlier that you use to increase your skills to make them stronger. They generally require a gem and a parchment. The gems can be purchased on the auction house or earned through gameplay, and the parchment can only be earned through gameplay. This is where you're going to craft your books to make your skills stronger. For gear, which includes the weapons, the armor, and the accessories, you will be able to craft these, but the system here is a little bit different than what you're probably used to. On the weapon side, it'll be separated by weapon type, and depending on the rarity of the weapon, you will need some like quality materials that go along with that rarity. So if it's quality, you need these quality materials, but you also will need a recipe for every single piece of armor, accessory, and weapon that you make. And depending on the rarity, it might be harder and harder to get those recipes. So everything green and below, at least in the version that we have right now, requires a generic quality lithograph for that weapon. So in order to make a green weapon or a green piece of armor or a green accessory, it's just a generic item. But you'll notice that as soon as you go to blue or precious level gear, you need the exact recipe for that exact item in order to craft it and use it for it, which is going to make all this a lot more challenging. Now, some of these are going to be available on the auction house on launch. They may not be filled on the auction house until people find them and put them up on the auction house, but you will be able to get these off the auction house if you need to, or find them through various different means. Now, if you're ever curious on where to get something, this is going to be the next part we'll talk about as well, but you can click on the item on PC and you can go down here to the search list. You can search in the auction house for the item itself. You can see there's none there, but you can also go and see how to acquire that item as well. So we're gonna click how to acquire, and it'll give us all these different ways to search for it. You can get it by gathering, you can get it through the Lithograph book, you can get it through merchants, things like that. And you can search through all the content in the game to see exactly where this item comes from. Which leads us to the Lithograph book, and this is something that I wish I understood fully before I had progressed through the game, because it would have been a lot easier and simpler in order to get these unlocked. The Lithograph book is a book of recipes that you can use to consume and destroy your old gear or random drops you find in the world to unlock new materials, new weapons, and the recipes. So you'll notice here that if we go to the gray version, if I have, like, say I have this headgear that I'm not using, it's a gray that I don't use anymore, I can add it to my Lithograph recipe book, and when I do that, it destroys the item and adds it to the recipe book. When you fill out the recipes required for this list, you'll be able to collect the rewards from the right. And as you go lower and lower, you'll notice you'll start getting recipes, you'll get crafting materials, upgrade materials. So what you kind of want to do is plan out a route of your progression through the Lithograph book to figure out, okay, I'm going to get, maybe you get all 4 green wands by crafting them, and then you get a blue wand by destroying those and putting them in your recipe book, which means that you can progress to the higher tier. And there's going to be the same thing for blue into purple as well, and then purple into higher level modifications and progressions and stuff like that. So as you work through this, having full sets of gear that you craft and upgrade means you can destroy those pieces of gear, put them into your recipe book, and unlock the next tier by going through this progression system, which is rather unique to this game. Now, you also want to be aware of this when you start your character, because you can actually start progressing this at the very start of the game. You'll notice that when you go to the gray common version of this recipe book, it has all these gray weapons and pieces of armor. A lot of these can either be purchased from a vendor for a small amount of gold and then added to your Lithograph book to give you crafting materials, give you upgrade materials, and give you higher rarity gear, but they can also drop from random world mobs as well. So if I wanted to get the Vital Wood Gray Longbow, you see it drops from one of these crabs here on the beach. So I can just, when I'm this level and leveling along, I can just farm these crabs for XP, get the grays that I need off of them, throw them in my recipe book, unlock the next recipe, and then I can start progressing my character as I'm going through the story and going through the quests. Then once you have the gear you're looking for, you want to start enchanting it as well. So you go to equipment enchanting here, and this is where you can take your gear and you can increase it by adding experience to it. This is where you use the growth stones for weapon, accessory, and armor, and it makes your gear stronger and stronger. And what's great about this is you can actually progress these further and further, and as they get higher and higher level, you can transfer the XP that these items have over to the next new tier that you want. So when you move up a tier, like say you go from rare to precious for the purple quality gear, you can then take the XP of this weapon and destroy it and add it to your next tier weapon and move that progression along as you go, which effectively makes these lower rarity growth stones valuable to even the higher equipment, as long as you keep up with the in-game systems as you progress through the game. Additionally, all of your gear can have traits or equipment abilities or both, and the traits are very restrictive in this game. So you'll see here on this piece, I have a magic evasion trait that you'll want to fill up to get that stat on it. You can level these traits up by actually like leveling the process of doing it. So once you go through and actually do the trait leveling, you can actually process these traits and make them stronger and stronger. But in order to do that, you need to either find a extract of that trait, which you can buy off the auction house. So people can take an item and extract the trait out of it, destroying the item, and then sell you the extract, and you can use use that to make your trait stronger, or you can find equipment that has the same exact trait and consume the duplicate equipment to make your trait stronger. So you want to be paying attention to what traits drop, what traits you unlock with the gear, and then keep that going as you go along through your progression. Now, aside from crafting and the Lithograph Book, which is probably going to be your main source of gear until you reach endgame, but you will still get lucky by progressing through the encounters and other drop sources in the game. So if you go to your menu and go to co-op dungeon or party matchmaking, you'll be able to see the dungeons that are available to you, and you'll see that by completing these dungeons, you will get access to this gear. But it's important to know that you'll have to spend this unique currency in order to get this, but this will be another great source of unlocking gear for you. Additionally, there will be world events like guild raids, challenges, invasions, and unique elites that spawn all over the world as you're running around exploring. The guild raids will have a mixed PvP portion to them, so you do want to join a guild and be part of that in order to challenge these guild raids. These will just basically be a boss that appears in the open world, and anywhere around the boss will have PvP enabled, which means you'll go in groups to fight, and there's tons of really great gear and drops you can get from that process, but again, you want to do that in groups. And since this video has gotten long enough already, let's close out with the dungeons, the raid activities, and that sort of thing. You're going to have a whole bunch of things to do outside of doing quests and exploring zones, doing the random world events that pop up, and again, you can always go to the timetable if you want to. So press M to open map and go to timetable, you'll see all these events that will pop up all over the world. There's like open events, peaceful events, PvP events. These are like the conflict events with the bosses that spawn if you want to engage with those, but you're also going to be able to do special dungeons and solo dungeons as well. The group dungeons look like this. They're going to have this kind of like marker on it, so if you go to the region, you'll see that there are dungeons in every region. You can go and click through them, and they do have open and instance versions of them. The open ones can invite more PvP and group style combat. There are instance versions as well that are meant for groups to explore, and you'll unlock these as you go further and further into them. And this is where that dimensional contract token system comes into play. So you'll complete these dungeons with a group, and when you get to the very end, a chest will appear, and you will be able to open that chest using this dimensional contract token resource. You will get this resource refreshed every single day. So this is kind of like your daily charge of resource. You get right now it's 660. This number will change depending on your circumstances and what happens with the game release, but you'll get a certain amount of the dimensional contract tokens every day, and you'll use that to open up the chests at the end of dungeons to get chances at loot. This gives weapon mastery XP. It gives you weapons based on the level of dungeon that you're completing and the amount of gear you get. And remember, because you have the crafting system, the lithograph system, and the trait system, even if you get gear that you don't plan on using, it's still useful because you can turn it into other materials, you can turn it into level ups, you can turn it into recipes or other bonuses for you to make your character stronger, so every piece of loot is valuable. Now, you can walk to these dungeons, you can also teleport to these dungeons directly and enter in them with a pre-made group. And if you're looking for a pre-made group, you can go to the party board, which should unlock somewhere in the level 20 area. So you'll be able to go to the party board, find someone that's doing what you're looking for, request to join, and you can join. Your combat power is your eye level. If you've played any other RPG or MMO, you know what that means. It's down here on your P screen. So you'll want to be able to look at this to see what your power is, make sure you have it right for the dungeon. But if you also just want to go into the dungeon and play, you can also use the party matchmaking feature. And this is how you will re-queue when you're in a dungeon and someone disconnects as well. You'll have to re-queue through the party matchmaking system. Choose either defensive, damage, like tank, DPS, or healer, essentially. Each group will have, it's either a 2-man party, or it's a 6-man party, or it's a group of like a large group at a party. There'll be 1 tank, 4 DPS, and 1 healer. And usually the tanks will have either greatsword or both. The healers will almost always have wand, and then wand and longbow, wand and staff, wand and daggers, that sort of thing. And then DPS can be anything really that can do damage in general, which is almost every weapon in the entire game. On top of that, there is kind of like a boss rush tower climb with the secret dungeons. You'll want to keep up with this as you get stronger and stronger. This is a solo only experience. You'll teleport and you'll fight a single encounter with a boss or some kind of scenario that you're going through. This will give you loot as you go along, and again, you want to keep up with this as you get stronger and just keep fighting against these bosses as you climb the tower to make sure you're getting all the bonuses and benefits that it includes. And lastly, once you reach endgame, you're going to be doing a lot of open world and fun guild activities. This includes doing raids, guild raids on bosses, doing sieges in PvP where you will trigger a giant golem and go attack something. You'll notice that some of these areas can be controlled by a guild, and they will then be able to enact taxes on people in that area. And if you want to declare war on that guild and do a siege and fight, kind of like old school Daok RVR, you'll be able to do that and claim that land for yourself. And those will happen with sieges, siege golems, and you can transform into a golem based on your guild and do PvP encounters that way for tons of really nice benefits. And that covers everything you need to know to get started in Throne and Liberty. I hope you enjoy the game. If you have other questions for me or things you want me to cover, drop that down below. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.